So, I look around the room and there are a lot of real privacy and social networking experts in the room, people far more expert than I. So I may just turn to some of you to really add some key insights because I certainly don't have them all. Before the session started today, we asked around to see if anyone knew why today is actually Data Privacy Day. I went online, used Bing to do some research, and I asked around the audience, and I got a couple of interesting answers. And somebody here in the audience claims that the reason that today is Data Privacy Day is that it's actually an attempt to disrupt the January 28th FTC panel with people who are concerned that that's a rush towards legislation. So the folks from PFF wrote that in as their answer. Somebody else here seems to say that it was time to coincide with the launch of the iPad in order to kind of get Apple more focused on the privacy debates because they're not here, and so maybe it'll get it on Steve Jobs' radar screen. Alan Charles Roll, he wrote in here, he says that the reason it was scheduled today was to coincide with the State of the Union to remind Obama to appoint some people to the White House Privacy and Civil Liberties Board. Does anyone really know why today is... Yael? Oh, she's a ringer. Yael Weinman from the FTC who does international stuff. Today is the anniversary of the ratification of the Council of Europe's 108, which I guess is considered the first international privacy treaty. Is that right? Jolyn Dellinger, the coordinator of National and International Data Privacy Day? Yes, the official coordinator. So this is actually the only official data privacy event going on around the world because we've got Jolyn who actually works for the privacy projects where she runs Data Privacy Day. Okay, so we're going to be talking about social networking, and some of you may have heard this story, and I just want to confess, again, to not being that much of a social networking expert. But I got on Facebook real early. A bunch of us are friends with Chris Kelly. When Nuala and I were back at DoubleClick, Chris was at Excite at Home, one of the early ed networks. And, so we were sort of the early kind of privacy officers muddling around. And so Chris was a friend. And when he went to Spoke.com, which was like a networking kind of thing for professionals, we couldn't get that. And then when he went to Facebook, that seemed like a step down, social networking for professionals, then for college kids. But I tried to sign on, and you couldn't. You had to be in college, and I didn't have in my days, you didn't get a .edu address, right? Today, you use it for SD Life, but back in those days, and so I didn't have one. I couldn't get on. When they opened up to high school kids, right, the way high school kids could get on was that a college kid had to invite them, which was really cool, right? I had to get a college kid to invite me so that I could join Facebook. And I soon got all hooked. Nuala was joking because she knows how hooked I am. And I'm in my home office, and and my wife is thinking, come on, what are you doing? You're playing, you're messing around. I said, no, this is serious. This is work. This is very important. But I figured I better do something to make it up to her. And I download this application that sends a smoochy, sparkly, I love you, honey, so very much kiss. And a lot of you remember in the early days, some of the applications on Facebook were very aggressive. They wanted to spread virally, and so they automatically pre-checked every one of your friends. I had accumulated at this time 600 or 700 friends, old girlfriends, bosses, reporters, journalists. And I clicked to send this to my wife, not realizing I have pre-checked all 612 acquaintances, friends. No big deal. It's a little embarrassing. I'll just put at the top of my page, sorry, dear friends, I like you all, but I love only my wife. The fun wall has turned me into an over-amorous spammer, and, it'll pass. But Facebook by then had started cracking down, and they were rate limiting these messages, so they didn't want you accidentally hitting 600 people. And so only 10 or 12 a day would go, but that would happen every day for the next 3 months. So Nuala got smooched. Some of you may have gotten smooched. So I just want to apologize, given that this is about online reputation. If that did a dent in my reputation, I want to apologize and try to repair it today. My wife claims that she's actually never received that kiss. So back in those early days as well at DoubleClick, we had a we needed a lot of help. It was a crisis. 60 Minutes was writing stories. We were being criticized and pilloried and sued, and we reached out to some smart privacy gurus at PricewaterhouseCoopers, and Brendan Lynch was one of those crack young folks who came in, soon became the heartthrob of the office, let me tell you, in addition to being a valuable and sharp minded advisor on privacy. He was just as a gentleman and a guy with just a wonderful demeanor, very well appreciated around the office. So it's a delight to have Brendan here today. Let me just tell you a word or two before I bring him and on to talk about some of the interesting research that Microsoft is releasing today. Just a couple of words about the Future of Privacy Forum. We're a think tank, and we are by design set up to be half privacy officers from a range of companies, whether it's AT&T, Verizon, Microsoft, eBay, Facebook, and a whole range of others, GE. The other half of our board are advocates and academics, and so we try to look for some pragmatic solutions, folks from CDT and EFF and others in this room, that move the ball forward. One of our big projects just launched yesterday. Some of you may have seen some of the coverage of this behavioral, I don't want to call it a privacy icon because it's not about how your data is not being used. It's about how companies are using your data to try to tell your experience, which if people perhaps are open and transparent about, and here, guess what, I'm trying to sell you some stuff, is it okay, may actually do a little bit to diffuse some of the tension. So we had a lot of input from corporate folks and advocacy folks, and it's great now that the leading industry groups are planning on adopting it as a central part of their self-regulation program. So we're excited about that. Another area where we spend a lot of time now is the smart grid and all the data that will be available to utilities and to others because of the power grid. Some utilities have said to me, we're just looking to, turn on and off people's power, demand response, we want to save energy. What do you mean? It's not going to be about marketing. And, I think back, and some of you in this room, who were active in the early days of the internet. And if someone had said to you back then, it's not about email, it's going to be about tracking websites and tracking web searches, and you'd say, what do you mean? That's not what the web's about. And so today, as the smart grid's being built, and it is so indeed important that we succeed and create jobs and save energy and save the environment, that we do so in a way that respects the data that's going to be collected. And then the third issue, which we're just starting to work on, to get back to those apps, which are everywhere, and they're so key, and they're on our iPads and our iPhones and on our Facebook and our mobile devices. They have become a unique way to get an awful lot of data to provide all kinds of great, fun, useful services. But what in the world are the good practices that those apps ought to be following? There are 500,000, I think, developers who build apps for Facebook. They're all over the world. Who are they? Who's helping them understand how to be respectful as they have this huge load of data? So those are what we are, and those are our projects. And so we're delighted to be able to invite you today and host you. Let me close with letting you know that despite the rush of congressional business and the partisanship in Washington and the Republicans and the Democrats, and Congress had a rush to be ready for the State of the Union. Indeed, the resolution was passed with bipartisan support, right, Jolyn? Declaring, I believe, I thought I saw it, the 27th, that it did indeed pass. What also passed were important resolutions like the 125th anniversary of the American Kennel Club and other critical things like that. But it is actually now officially in the United States of America, I believe, because of this resolution, Data Privacy Day. And so a very fitting day to learn and hear a bit about online reputation. And so let me introduce to you and ask Brendan to get ready to come up here and release some, I think, really truly interesting research. Brendan, as a lot of you know, is the Senior Director for Privacy Strategy in the Trustworthy Computing Group at Microsoft, the group that Peter Cullen runs and that plays a key role across the company in trust issues. And we'll have an interesting discussion